What's up, guys? Happy Friday. It is a exceptionally happy Friday because for the first time in months, it is Gamecock football game day. Spring game tonight, 7:30 at Williams-Brice. We preview, talk about what to watch for, who's on the clock, and what is going to be the aftermath afterwards with over 30 recruits coming in. Do they get any commitments right after the game? We tell you what we know. Locked on Gamecock starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler, and I hope everyone's having a fantastic week and a fantastic Friday. We are recording this Friday morning and want to say thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode, it's just brought to you by us. We don't have any ad reads to start the show. We're just going to get right into it. Big day, South Carolina spring game tonight, Friday night in Williams-Brice. Feels good. Like it's fun to cover this team and program for a lot of reasons because it's fun that like the content doesn't just die off after football season ends. Like South Carolina is good or competitive in a lot of other sports, but there's just something different about like a actual game day for football. You know what I mean? And I know it's a spring game. And I know it's on Friday night, but I am excited. I know y'all are as well. And it's going to be a new look for in some cases for this team. And we're going to go over what to watch for. Different guys that might be on the clock, and also the latest news out of the portal. South Carolina in contention for one of the top, if not the top, edge rushers in the portal right now, a kid from North Carolina. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's get into it. All right, so the spring game tonight, what are we watching for? First and foremost, want to see zero injuries, all that kind of stuff, and just a clean game. I'm sure it will not be a lot of 11-on-11, heavy-hitting, like scrimmage, right? You're going to see just a looser version of that, but still getting some crisp work in. It feels like South Carolina is one of the only teams in the SEC that's kind of taken the traditional route for their spring game. Georgia's one, A&M's another one, but most teams opted out. Some did combines, fan days. I mean, Ole Miss had like a hot dog eating competition. Anyway, but I'm excited for that. Obviously, I want to see Sellers. How does he look? He looks physically even better than he did a year ago. What does the accuracy look like? What's his timing like with the new receivers? What's his timing like with the receivers coming back? And like how much crisper can he get in the passing game? And obviously in the passing game as a whole. Also, that being said, we're not going to be able to tell a ton about the play calling and offensive identity of this team just from the fall. I mean, you look at like, I always think it's interesting because like Georgia's a team that threw the ball. I want to say they threw the ball like 78 times or something like that in their spring game. They're not going to throw the ball 78 times in a game. I don't know what South Carolina is going to try to work on most in this game, but I do want to see play designs. Like how similar or how different is this offense going to look in the play calling and all that kind of stuff than it did a year ago with Dowell Loggins? Specifically, how different is it going to look from the final 6 games of the regular season when that offense took off? I don't expect it to be too different, too crazy. This is like, not Mike Shula's first rodeo, even with SEC stuff. So we'll see. Everything that he has said in the spring has just been nothing but positivity. Like not even coach speak, just super positive. Hard to read if, like too much into stuff. Cause he's just kind of kept like a low profile for most of the spring, but that'll be on display on Friday night. Are there any differences that are noticeable? That's all. The other thing that I'm very excited about, and most of this is like I talk about this all offseason, how the defense in my mind has the most question marks. I don't think that's in question. Like the defense does have the most question marks, and the people you're replacing and the players and like the production, we've talked about it over and over and over again. That front seven, like I am interested in seeing who's in the front seven, like both in the starting and the 2 deep. How do they look physically? How do they look? Because you had some dudes, you had some grown men at those positions that were all, some were COVID seniors, some had been in the portal multiple times. They were multiple 5th-year guys And then you had, oh, by the way, Kyle Kennard, who was the best defensive end in the country. So what does that look like? Like who steps in the field first at those spots and is in your front seven? And then what do they look like physically, like filling in those roles and filling in those shoes as well? Because here's the thing too, a lot of those guys that you're bringing in, not a lot, but there's several, especially the linebackers, that are higher ranked recruits out of high school than the people you're replacing. But, even though Debo Williams was like a 2-star recruit, like we all know that he was not a 2-star player. And there's a reason why he was an all SEC caliber linebacker for South Carolina as well. So what does that look like on the other side? And talk about the offense. I'm not really going to get too attached to any sort of, what's the best way to put this? I'm not going to get attached to any sort of high or low takeaway or instant reaction or person of the moment about the offensive line. And part of that is just me being a little bit stubborn about it. I would love to watch this game and feel like my immediate and first takeaway and biggest takeaway is, oh my gosh, the offensive line looks night and day different than it did a year ago. They're able to protect and pass pro. They're able to get like road grade in the run game, all those things. I'm not going to get my hopes up in a spring game that you're going to be busting off, 10, 15-yard runs at all. If they did, we'd probably have a problem with the defensive line. But while there's a lot of new faces on the interior of that offensive line, and that is going to be very important to how they look, my biggest concerns and questions in this kind of scenario, in this setting is, what does the running back situation look like? And how involved are they in not just running the football? How involved are they in the other parts of this offense? Blocking and pass protection, because Rocket Sanders was fantastic at that, catching the ball out of the backfield. And then also, like, volume-wise, who is going to be the guy that's going to step in and be the guy like Rocket was in multiple phases of the offense? Like that Missouri game, him catching the ball out of the backfield, and he did it over and over and over again, but not just running between the tackles. Is that something that they feel like Russell Faison is like he can do all of those things just like Rocket Sanders did? Or is it going to be a situation where it's kind of like a running back by committee to serve the purposes of what they're trying to get out of certain play designs and play calls, all that kind of stuff with the personnel they put on the field? Now, maybe the most overlooked position on this team, and really it shouldn't be, because replacing Josh Simon at tight end is not going to be an easy task. Statistically, he was a top 3 tight end in the SEC last year, which is saying something considering the kid from Vanderbilt was like All-American level. The kid from Texas was fantastic. But you had one of the most productive, like there was a time and it felt like in the middle of the season where the offense started their games like to get rolling and get into like a groove and like get comfortable with targeting him and like easy 4-6 yard run or 6-yard plays, or he was the guy that you had to go to like when you were in a pinch. Like maybe I'm completely wrong on that, but it felt like he was the guy that was like, all right, we know we need to go get 4 to 6 yards to start this drive. Let's hit him in the flat. Let's go to Simon. He was fantastic. Who steps in to replace him? Brady Hunt played in 10 games last year. I personally, I'm very excited about Mike Smith. I think he is physically a mismatch for so many different defenders that would be put on him. Didn't have a ton of production or playing time last year. I think he played in 12 games, but he just didn't have a ton of catches or anything like that. But in the red zone especially, that's a guy that could be a huge difference maker if he takes the next step going into this season from his freshman year to his sophomore year. The other one, you went into the portal and got an SEC player, the kid Dingle from Kentucky. Is he a guy that's going to be is he going to step on the field first when the starting offensive unit comes out? Because here's the deal: there's still time, obviously, in fall camp to earn a spot and figure out who the starters are going to be. And at that position, especially, you're probably going to see a lot of bodies, right? They didn't run a ton of 12 personnel, but they ran a lot of formations where multiple tight ends were featured in what they were trying to do. Does that make sense? So is it Mike Smith, who's, I think, a huge threat in the passing game, more so than being like a good blocker at this point in his career? Or is it a guy that's a fourth or fifth year guy from Kentucky that is experienced and a veteran, all that kind of stuff. Like, I think that's going to be really interesting because I think you're going to have a drop off in production at that position. So who they decide to put out there and replace whatever they have there, I think that's going to be very interesting. Okay. We are going to take a quick break, and we're getting into 3 guys and players who are on the clock, need to have not a big spring game, but a big, big finish to the spring. And then after that, we will get into the latest and the rumors and the things that we've been hearing behind the scenes on what could be all the fireworks you're going to see during the game could pale in comparison to the fireworks you might see afterwards with recruits, commitments, and all the above. Locked On Gamecocks continues right after this. All right, we are back. Thanks again, guys. I'm excited. I feel like this is a more energized episode today. I don't know if it's better structured or organized because that's not really my forte, but I am very excited about the game tonight. So, okay, before we get into the next part of the show and continuing our preview of the spring game, I want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Amazon Fire TV. Now, the Fire TV stick and then 4K. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? I did not know that. Turn on any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No consoles required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and even Avowed as well. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6 and 6E, the auto low latency mode advanced technology that Fire TV Stick 4K provides is smoother and more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. Now, obviously, this is a fantastic deal, and I tell you what, it's better than the deal and the convenience is the efficiency of the actual Amazon Fire TV Fire Stick. Now, listen, play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of owning a console. If you already have a console, a Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you and your games on the road, wherever you want to plug in. So, head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Go check it out today. All right, back into the spring game and what we're looking for. And honestly, like, we're looking for a lot. It's just such an exciting feeling going into this season. And like, there's been years where you've had more palpable energy, excitement, expectations probably than this year. But it feels like it's been about a decade since that's happened to this level, right? So I think one of the most obvious things that people have been excited about and talked about, like in the media and fans, all that kind of stuff, for most of this offseason and spring is obviously the young core group of receivers. Yeah, I'm excited to watch that as well, for sure. That being said, I think I'm way more excited to see because there's just only so many players you're going to be able to get on the field at once, right? Like, I mean, you've got it legitimately on paper, probably 8 to 10 guys, probably 8 guys that you feel like from a talent standpoint, just talent alone, from where they were as a recruit, what they've done already in their career at South Carolina, or any of the above, you feel comfortable with like them being a solid addition, whether it be for depth or a like explosive playmaker that we see on the field. I feel like you feel really, really good and confident about that, like about that position group, almost to where it feels it's way more excitement and not concerned. Like maybe the least concerned you are about any position group is the receivers. I don't know if that's the smartest way to go into this season because if we're being honest, there were times when that group underwhelmed a lot last year. And the competition is going to, of course, iron sharpens iron, all that kind of stuff this year. And I think you have a group that's only going to continue to elevate their floor and their ceiling because of that competition. But that being said, most of the guys that you're super excited about besides Harbor are true freshmen, right? Like most of the added depth pieces that you're bringing in, it's in a fantastic recruiting class, but they're all true freshmen. How many of them are going to be able to step on the field? And also, like I said earlier, like what does that timing look like working with Lenoris, like in the speed of the game? Like it's very different coming from Irmo or, Florence than going up against Alabama and all of them on a Saturday afternoon. So instead of just focusing on the receiver group, what I'm really most excited about is I think that the most veteran laden group you have out of any position group on the field is your secondary. We talked all offseason about the receivers, but like, how do they match up against this secondary? Because I think the secondary, even though you lost Eamon Worry, even though you lost O'Donnell Fortune, I think they're going to take a step forward in terms of overall talent. A lot of guys got a lot of snaps last year, like a lot. So how do they match up with where I think a lot of people assume is going to be in a disadvantage? And like, not that they're not up to the task, but I think if you lined up South Carolina's receiving group and South Carolina's defensive backs, most people are going to assume and think, yeah, the receiver's going to win that battle all day long. So, how does that look? They've been going at it all spring. Now we get a chance to see them actually do it inside of Williams-Brice. Like, I honestly feel like the secondary is going to be very, very good. And the other part of that too, even though there's some new faces back there and all that kind of stuff, and like I said, you got to replace one of the best safeties that's ever come to the program. But Clayton White has been phenomenal at not just his schemes, not just putting out an elite top 20 defense nationally, top 5 defense in the SEC year after year after year, not only leading the SEC in turnovers for 4 straight years, but getting guys, whether it be from high school, whether it be from the portal, whatever, developing them and building this like incredibly consistent unit defensively. I think that's the position group that I am least concerned about. I think they're going to be great. But how do they match up with this receiver group? Because there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent that you kind of feel like might just be scratching the surface right now. And down the road might be one of the best receiver groups that's ever come to the school. Already talked about the tight ends. The very last thing that I'm excited about. If you've kept up with any of the fan sites or like Big Spur on 247 or On 3 or anything like that, or you listen to like any of the interviews that we did with Darren Usher or any of the other interviews he did on several other fantastic South Carolina podcasts. First and foremost, shout out to everyone that's out here like putting out tremendous content about South Carolina. It's been a long off season, but like I will never sit here and try to feel like I'm in a competition with any of these people because there's so many talented guys that do a great job here. I urge you to check out all of them. But Darren Ursher made the rounds on several of these, including ours, throughout spring. And if you talk about South Carolina recruiting, it does feel different than it did with Muschamp. And it does feel different than it did in year 1 and 2 with Beamer. And now it kind of feels like they've turned this corner where you're not hoping to land, a handful of 4 and 5 stars. Like that's the expectation. You've done it over and over and over again. You've done it out of high school and the transfer portal. And the next part of that is, okay, so when do I get to open my presents? Because most of the talk I feel like from the spring game has been about a couple of things. How does Lenore Sellers look at the offense with Mike Shula? How does the young receivers look? And how many recruits are coming to this spring game? How many recruits are coming on an official visit? They have rolled out the red carpet. It is a massive, massive organized weekend for over 30 recruits, I think, that are coming. That was as of yesterday. But but a lot of focus and emphasis and excitement when you talk about this South Carolina spring game for this year has been about the recruiting and what could potentially happen after the game ends. No injuries, young guys play great, defense looks better than expected, offensive line looks better than expected. Want all those things to happen. You know, it would make a really good just a really good close to this chapter of the spring football season. 4 to 5 guys that are there this weekend, whether they're in state, out of state, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, any of it. You get this recruiting class for next year kicked off, or even the 2027 class kicked off in a big way this weekend, and you're able to put 4, 5, 6 different commits just off of this weekend. That is such a massive, massive deal to go into the dead period and in the summer and not have to feel like you are already behind and having to get back into focusing on recruiting. You know what I mean? Like that is there are so many elite prospects that'll be in Williams-Brice this weekend, and a lot of them in state. Like we've talked about this before. South Carolina as a state does not put out a ton of really elite recruiting talent. Like year over year, you probably have around 4 to 5 guys in the entire state that are ranked at 4-star or higher. That's it. This upcoming year and last year as well, that you've seen an uptick in it. So how do you take advantage of that? Because you've timed it perfectly with what seems to be, like I said earlier, a turning of the corner for this program, and a absolutely hell of a recruiter in Shane Beamer and several other guys on the staff. So I hope the game goes fantastically. I hope Nick Harbor is incredible. I hope he makes several circus catches. I hope the running backs are all fantastic and they all get the ball several times, like for massive gains. And there's no questions there about having to replace Rocket Sanders. I hope the tight ends look great and make you feel fine about having to replace Josh Simon. All that. I hope more than anything that when we're walking out of Williams-Brice tonight and we're waking up tomorrow and checking, on 3, 247 or whatever, it's just several stories one after the other about South Carolina getting commitments for the upcoming class and in 2026. Like big recruiting weekends like this, you've seen orchestrated around the SEC for a long time. They did it at Auburn for a long time, the Big Cat weekend. It's something that recruits love to do, and then they kind of get caught up in like the emotion of it all, and that it just starts like a domino effect. So I would love to see South Carolina not, I don't say be behind, but it felt like you had a lot of work to do with your recruiting class going into last season. I think going into the season, you had about 18 guys, which doesn't feel like it should be like way behind, but like mostly every other class and every other team in the SEC was at least over 20, and most of them had their classes completely settled on with 2 to 3 spots left. They were still trying to get. So yeah, like it did feel like you had a lot of work to do going into the season, which is not when you want to be doing your recruiting. Like you want to be focusing on the season. So it just would be a great way to not only end the spring, but kickstart the next part of this offseason. So that is all for the spring preview. Before we go, one little tidbit and news. The NCAA made a significant rule change on Thursday afternoon. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to tell you what it is. But not only, in the most shocking news ever, did the NCAA finally do something right, the poster child of this rule couldn't be more perfect. All right. The NCAA makes an actual effort to do the right thing and make their product better, safer, not just for the players, but for the fans as well. And I can't even believe that sentence just came out of my mouth. I mean, of course, that is what their sole purpose is as the organization, is to provide a better environment, future, and college experience for the student athlete. I don't know if they've ever read their own mission statement, if they just walk by it in the hall every day, but they finally did at least one thing right. And the news came out yesterday that I think the best part of it was like that On3 and someone else, the graphic they posted about it was just a giant picture of Lane Kiffin. Because enough people finally complained about every single time you watch a team get a first down and get any sort of momentum on offense, and you see a 300-pound defensive lineman just fall to the ground out of nowhere. Or, when you want to save timeouts and you are a 2nd and 2 or 3rd and 2 in your own territory, and you just see a running back all of a sudden collapse to the ground. Even worse, you saw it several times with Ole Miss where like you would see Jackson Dart motion to tell them, or coaches on the sideline that would tell them to do it. At going into the LSU game, which I think was their 6th game of the season, Ole Miss led the country in injury stoppages with over 31. 2 things on that. 1, it's no shock that they led the country. 2, I was shocked that the number wasn't higher because it felt like they had 31 in the South Carolina game alone. But the NCAA now says if a player falls to the ground, right? If a player falls to the ground and it results in a staff member, medic, coach, whatever, having to come on the field and assist them, that would stop play, they will be forced to use a timeout. If they're out of timeouts, they will be charged a delay of game penalty and cost them 5 yards as well. Here's the thing too. This was the, like, I feel like a lot of times the NCAA especially, or MLB does this a lot. You have a problem, like fans complain about consistently and loudly and collectively. And instead of just getting directly to fixing the problem in the easiest straight line path, you overthink the blank out of it. Like MLB is like the worst of this, but you overthink the blank out of it. And like the end result is not fixing the problem. It's like just putting like a Band-Aid over it. The NCAA's in that forever, right? Like I've never understood how they could be so bad at being efficient in what they've been doing, because they've just been overseeing these sports. It's not like they just started it. They've been around for like 130 years. So with this situation and the injury issues, the fix was simple. It was, if someone goes down, it's either going to cost you a timeout, or if someone goes down and you don't have a timeout or whatever, that player has to sit out for the rest of the possession. Easy as that. I mean, like, I shouldn't have to be the smartest one in the room. People on Twitter shouldn't have to be the smartest one in the room. Turns out they were on the same page with the NCAA, and that's exactly what they did. And I don't know how big of a difference it's going to make across the country or across the SEC. There are several teams that do it. I do know that, like, when South Carolina travels to Oxford next year, that is one less thing you have to deal with, because nobody was a bigger abuser and an offender of that rule or lack thereof than Lane Kiffin. So there you go. The Lane Kiffin rule is now in effect. Players cannot fake injuries physically or emotionally. There you go. So that is all for today's episode. We didn't get to it, even though it's on the graphic, but I don't want to jinx it. This is like the second time. Remember we had the Dow Loggins episode in the fall, and I was like, listen, I wrote down all these stats. They should fire Dow Loggins right now. And then what do I know? Nothing, because the next week and the 6 weeks after that, South Carolina was a completely different team, and the offense is amazing. So maybe you're seeing a trend here, because earlier this week we did an episode about firing Paul Mainieri. I don't know if you guys have kept track of this, but you got to win on Tuesday. You got to win on Thursday. 2 in a row. What's that like? I haven't felt that in a minute with this team. But a big opening game 1 win to kick off the series against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a top 10 team, so that is a big deal for them to get that win last night. I tell you what, I hear all the anger and frustration about Mainieri. I said it the other day, but how easy is this game when you're not giving up like an unbelievable amount of runs? It's really easy to win baseball games when you're not giving up 40 runs in a weekend series. Last night, 84 pitches, complete game, 3-2 victory over Ole Miss. Listen, now go get a win. Now go get a series win and try to get this thing turned around before the end of the season. All right, that is actually all for the show. I promise I'm actually going to go away. You guys have a great rest of your day and a great start to your weekend. Happy Easter. If you guys are looking, by the way, for a spot to celebrate your Easter Sunday, maybe head on over to Providence Lutheran Church in Lexington, South Carolina. That's where I will be with my mom as well, celebrating a fantastic Easter. So hope you and yours have a good and safe holiday weekend, and we'll see you all on Monday. Go Cox.